top of that first hill. See that island? I'm going to talk about it in a minute. Now look way out in the distance between two islands. There's a little lighthouse that just flashed. Every 10 seconds it'll flash. Way out there, that is the first lighthouse ever built in this country back in 1716. It is officially known here in Boston as Boston Light. Somebody worked real hard on that name. Boston Light's not a beer, it's a lighthouse. And then of course, out there in the distance now off to the right, you'll see those big white tanks. See the tanks? I'm going to come back to them in a minute. They sit out on the very end of Deer Island, because that was an island once overrun with, who said cows? Come on. Deer, yes. And it's no longer an island just like Castle Island. It is a peninsula, but we're very stubborn when it comes to changing the names of things, as you'll notice as we move about this tour. But there are 34 islands, in fact, out here in Boston Harbor, the Boston Harbor Islands National Park. So, why am I pointing these two things out, the island and the big white tanks? Well, here we are, out on this beautiful harbor. 40 years ago, no one would dream about coming out here for a harbor tour. And if you worked out here, you needed a tetanus shot just to be here, because this harbor used to be one of the dirtiest harbors in the country. Today, it is one of the cleanest harbors in the country. It's having a transformational effect on the city of Boston as we speak. And here we are, all enjoying this beautiful harbor. It's fair to know the story about why we get to be here. So, the story of the cleanup of Boston Harbor. How did it get to be so dirty? How did it get to be so clean? Thanks so much for asking. So, we'll start with the island behind us now with the two hills and the rock retaining wall. That island used to be completely flat, and I mean sea level flat. Two round circles of land, a little sandbar in the middle. It actually looked like a pair of eyeglasses. Hence the name. Anybody want to speculate what we call that island? No, not eyeglass. Keep speculating. Spectacle Island. They're called stern draggers for the very simple and obvious reason they drag for fish off the stern of the boat. They unfurl those nets, they drag the nets behind the boats in the water, haul in their catch, but not here in the harbor, not out there in the bay. They go offshore 150 miles out to Jeffrey's Ledge, George's Bank, some of the most fertile fishing grounds in the world, and they haul in their catch to bring it back to the fish pier. You see the refrigerated trucks all lined up there, ready to deliver fresh fish throughout New England, or they'll ship it across the harbor to Logan Airport and deliver that fresh fish throughout the world. You could be as far away as Japan, the UK, Germany, Poland, anywhere, and be eating fresh fish from Boston. And to prove there's an airport over there, just look up. I didn't want you to think I was making that up or anything, you know. Talk about the airport in a little bit. There goes the smallest little push boat in the harbor. Now the big white tent there, that's a concert venue. The Leader Bank Pavilion, 5,000 seats. Great place to take in live music in the summer months. A little chilly in the wintertime. This is the second year in a row, and that's a record, that the Leader Bank hasn't changed names. Leader Bank ponied up the money for the naming rights 2 years in a row, and that is setting a record now. Now you see this giant codfish here, the sculpture on the corner of the Legal Seafoods Quality Control Center. That's a 45-foot codfish sculpture. Beautiful sculpture designed and built by David Tunnison right here in Somerville. And the eye of that fish changes color at night according to the wind speeds. Apparently it changes 4 million colors. I don't know anything about 4 million colors. I've only got 32 colors in my Crayola box, but I'll take their word for it. But at night, it's a beautiful sight. And it honors the history of Boston. This will be the most extraordinary thing you learn on this tour, without question. Boston was founded on the Shawmut Peninsula back in the 1630. And the Shawmut Peninsula, very rocky, very hilly, not so good for farming. So the colonists turned around, they took a look at the harbor, the bay, and the ocean beyond, and they said, that's fine, we'll farm that instead. Meaning, we'll become fishermen. And if we're gonna fish, farmers of the sea, we better build ourselves some boats, right? So shipbuilding and fishing is all waterfront business. The peninsula had precious little waterfront. So what did they do? They built the waterfront. As we turn our boat here, look off every side of the boat. It doesn't matter which direction you look in, there is no original land in sight at this point in time. All the land that you can see, it's man-made land. 75% of Boston sits on man-made land. It is absolutely extraordinary. There are three things we're going to see along the shoreline of this entire tour, and only three things. Wharves and piers, these are obviously man-made, and we're going to see a wide variety of rock retaining walls. And every time you see a rock retaining wall, it's a reminder we're still looking at man-made land. So I'm going to keep coming back to that, and we'll become experts by the end of this tour on man-made land. Trust me on that one. But now let's get to some history over here. Off to the right, you'll see a rusty iron bridge stuck in the broken position. Fortunately, still open. That's a swing bridge, turnstile bridge. It was designed back in 1904 by a group of MIT students. If they had built it, it would probably still be working, but they only designed it. They didn't get to build it. So it's been broken for about 10 or 15 years now. They say it's going to take about $17 million to take the bridge down, which is probably why it's still there. But if you look through the opening, you'll see the Boston Tea Party Ships and Museum, Griffin's Wharf, the very site of the Boston Tea Party, where on the night of December 16th, 1773, the colonists came down. They boarded 3 Nantucket merchant ships. Can anyone name those 3 ships? And it was not the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Let me save you from that wrong answer. The Eleanor, the Dartmouth, and the Beaver. And the captain of the Beaver, in fact, was an ancestor of mine. He's clearly not a tea drinker. He helped them dump 92,000 pounds of tea into the harbor, all the while proclaiming no taxation without representation. I can still hear the anger in your voices. Boy, do we know how to hold a grudge. So 92,000 pounds of tea went overboard, proving once and for all that we here in Boston do not know how to make a decent cup of tea. And it's right about now I will turn to my friends visiting from the UK and ask, have you had a decent cup of tea since you got here? Yeah, not so much. I didn't think so. Apparently, you're not supposed to mix tea leaves with cold, salty water. Is that right? Because frankly, we don't really care. We just wanted you to take your troops and get out of town. But we welcome you back nonetheless. So one of the many sparks of the American Revolution. Now, to the right of the bridge is Boston. To the left of the bridge is South Boston, or Southie if you live here. But if you lived here 200 years ago, you would know this is South Bay, because South Boston simply wasn't here. This is all man-made land off to the right. And this building right here behind my little yacht with a 4-story overhanging there, that's the ICA, Institute of Contemporary Art. Back in 2013, that's just 10 years ago, that was the tallest building in this entire area. All these buildings here in the seaport, brand spanking new. Get your cameras out, great opportunity for a selfie. There we go, right at the top of that building there.